Good evening, Tom. Welcome to the online mecca here. I was just noticing before we were going on, we'll be talking about this. This is, we're getting more and more of the charts, the tools available on Tastyworks, which I'm so excited about. And I've been watching this 2-hour squeeze shaping up on Bitcoin futures, and you can see that it broke. And so what's cool about Tastyworks, and we're going to talk more about this, but I was able to come in here and short Bitcoin futures, 10 contracts, of course, is like 50 Bitcoins. And we'll see. I mean, I shorted them not too long ago. We'll see where we are. Maybe by the end of this, it'll be up a lot more or it'll completely reverse. Trying to, shorting Bitcoin will offset my losses in my long gold and silver futures positions. So, but that's one of the things we'll talk about, just, some of the cool things where a lot of the stuff on the charts where we're able to do a lot more really cool things on the charts with our tools. We'll talk a little bit more about all the crypto that's now available on here and just kind of all kinds of fun stuff. And so what I was going to do with this is I've got about 10 slides or so I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tom. And just want, and Tom, I'll tee that up as we get closer. And I always say, like, when Tom asks, well, what do you want me to talk about? I'm like, yeah, about, 15 or 20 minutes, whatever you want to talk about. But because, it's always interesting listening to Tom and his views on kind of where the markets are and things like that. But a big part of this, too, is for people that are, newer to the concepts of Tastyworks, is really just kind of understanding not only, kind of the platform that they have, but the philosophy behind it, where they're headed. There's a lot of exciting things happening over at Tasty. And Sean, yeah, and so so a big question is Tastyworks versus Toss. And I'll give you my honest opinions on those as we go through here. Okay, so let's dive in here. And you'll notice on the first slide here that I don't even know what I did. Let's try present. On the first slide here, I just talk about, when we first did this, the title of it was The Future of Options Trading, okay? And I kind of added this all trading, which we'll get more into here in a second. So the question with this is that, we've had some amazing markets. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and 2020 for a lot of people was one of the most amazing trading years ever. And 2021 is simply what I would call more normal. And, we've been selling off the last couple of days. And for anybody that's brand new to the markets, this is new. And it's like, oh my God, what do we, wait, I saw something on Reddit the other day where someone, like literally on Friday, they were like, well, last week I started managing my parents' account and I'm like 4-to-1 margin long, Apple, Tesla, and I'm already down 150K, and I'm really hoping the market bounces back on Monday to save my butt. And you guys have seen what's happened Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And, the market will destroy people that don't understand things like, look, when the market is rallied +3 ATR, okay, I'm going to come back to that and I'll show you exactly what that means on the Tastyworks chart. You don't buy because the odds of making money at +3 ATR, which is 3 average true ranges away from the 21 period moving average, is almost like 5%. Like your chances of success are like 5%. Yet all these new people that come into the market, they don't know that, right? And so some basic tools like that are super helpful. So the idea with this, and this is, and this data isn't even up to date, but in terms of new traders, like Robinhood has attracted over, 4.3 million traders, another almost 4 million traders over at TD, almost 2 million traders at Interactive Brokers. The list goes on and on. All of a sudden, the amount of people that are into the markets is huge. And they are making an impact. They're actually changing some of the internals, like the put-call ratio and stuff like that, because all they do is buy calls. This has led to a lot of complaints as they find out things like, wow, this, the platform's not working, it's coming down, and that can cost a lot of money. So the two main platforms that I use are Thinkorswim and Tastyworks. And someone asked, like, well, which one do you prefer? And really, and this is a conversation that I've had with Tom too, I was like, look, guys, I'm a chart-based trader. Tom and everyone at Tasty, not everyone at Tasty, but Tom and a lot of those guys are more math-based traders. Like Tom and I have had this conversation. He's like, charts, what do you need a chart for? I'm like, I grew up on charts. And what's been great about listening to Tom and over at Tasty and all that is that over time, I've learned to kind of combine charting with the math. You know, give me a chart setup that I trust, and then I can apply the math, the probabilities of profit that Tasty makes so easy. And you know, not only do I define what a high probability setup is, but I can define what the highest probability of profit is on the option setup, you know, the option strategy I choose to do on the setup. So last year was a great year for trading. This was towards the end of the year in December. I had made over like $16 million on my Thinkorswim account. I started off with a smaller account in Tastyworks and was up 1.3 million. And then as of today, here's my Tastyworks account and my Tastyworks account. And so far this year, up about $10 million. So 7.3 on TOS and 2.8 on Tasty. Well, I guess as of now, 2.9 because I'm short Bitcoin. So, but the point is that I use both of these simply because you know, as Tasty gets more and more of our stuff over, I'm not necessarily going to need Thinkorswim anymore. Don't get me wrong, Thinkorswim is a great platform, but it's heavy. Like even today when I was teaching a class today, I was like, guys, I got to restart Thinkorswim. It's using all my RAM. Okay, I never have that problem with Tastyworks, and so Tastyworks is a light platform. You know, it's built on it's the technology that it's on is just simply more advanced, and so that's just something to keep in mind. So the future of trading. So remember, you know, at the end of the day, in many instances, especially like with options and futures, trading is a zero-sum game. If you lost money today, there was someone else on the other side of the trade. You know, if you were long calls, someone else was short the calls, et cetera, et cetera. And you've always got to remember that. You know, it takes two to tango in this. If you're making money, a lot of times it's because someone else is losing money, or, you know, you're taking the opposite side of a hedge or anything like that. And so really at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to give yourself the best edge that you can. And a lot of times the best edge comes from position size. Okay, you don't want to put on a huge position that's going to keep you up at night, but it's also based on multiple asset classes, so max. And we'll talk more about that with Tasty, which is, you know, Tasty is kind of the only platform at this point where you can trade, you know, not only stocks, not only options, not only futures on options, but crypto, cash crypto. Okay, and it's you can do it on one platform. So that's kind of the idea is, you know, we want chart setups with a defined edge. I'm going to talk about what that means to me, option strategies with a defined edge, and a trading platform with a defined edge. And that's kind of the triple whammy. So you might have chart strategies with a defined edge, but if your trading platform is heavy or it keeps locking up or it's difficult to place trades, you're actually losing edge. Okay, so you want edge with the setup that you're using, and then you want edge with the option strategy if you're choosing to trade options that could match that setup. For example, if there's a bullish setup, you know, do you buy a Delta 30 call? Do you buy a Delta 70 call? Or do you sell a Delta 30 10 put credit spread? Which one of these is going to give you the highest probability of profit? You know, all that kind of stuff. And that's stuff that's built into the Tasty platform, which is pretty awesome. So that's the triple threat. You want edge, edge, edge. Edge in your setups, edge in the probability of success in the option strategy you choose to apply to that setup. But then you want a platform that's going to not hog all your resources, that's going to allow you to ease in and out of these positions. And that's something that you know, where I've seen, at least in my experience, Tasty is starting to kind of leapfrog a lot of the other folks out there. So my platform journey is that I started off on E-Trade in the 90s. Okay, I was like Investors Business Daily. I'm calling in on my brand new cell phone that had buttons, and you know, that's how I was doing that. And then I graduated to TradeStation. Okay, and at this point, I was mostly trading futures. I was buying calls and puts and equities. You know, I've always been an aggressive trader, so I would make money, but then I'd lose it, and it was like, you know, it was kind of a frustrating time and just trying to, you know, find my niche. And then in about 2006, and at this point I'd been trading for a while and I got in a groove, And in about 2006, a more experienced trading friend said, why are you trading options on TradeStation? You should be on Thinkorswim. I'm like, what's Thinkorswim? And so I finally checked it out. I was like, wow, this is light years ahead of what TradeStation is doing. So Tom and I ended up on the same panel at some industry conference, and this is like 14 years ago. And we hit it off. We both love trading, like, the markets and all that kind of stuff. And we talked, and we ended up putting some of our tools on the Thinkorswim platform. And to this day, you can go there. There's a squeeze and all that kind of stuff too. And everything was great. And then, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think you voted against this. But what happened is Thinkorswim went public, and then 2008 happened. The stock price came down, and TD Ameritrade said, oh my gosh, that looks great. Let's buy it. And then all of a sudden, a large corporation owned Thinkorswim. And I'm not knocking TD or anything like that. They serve their niche, but it's different when you turn into managing what you have versus being innovative. So from here, Tom went and started, waited, I think 15 seconds after his non-compete was up, started tastytrade. And this was like 9 or 10 years ago. And I was, fly to Chicago and do that. And that was fun. And then they, started building out the platform and stuff like that. And so now you had tastytrade that was teaching people all this great stuff about options, and that rolled into Dough, which is more mobile, and then Tastyworks, which is their advanced options platform. All right, that's the one that we've been talking about. But then a few more things happened. So more recently, if you guys haven't heard, IG Group, which is a huge, huge firm out of London, is acquiring Tasty, and now all of a sudden they're going to have access to all these different markets, especially different cross pairs and Forex, and it may even help them get into Canada. That's been the hardest thing. And in addition to that, they've also now added all of these crypto tokens on their platform. So what's amazing about this is that, again, not only do you have an edge on this platform, but you have different asset classes. And as we will talk about here later, you're like, I don't, last year I made a lot of money trading Tesla. This year this year I haven't made any money trading Tesla, but I don't care what the stock is. All I care is what is the setup. I want to find my squeeze. I want to make sure that the, moving averages are cross positive, and I don't care what the asset is. It could be DOT. It could be Bitcoin, right? And it could be Amazon. I don't care what it is. I want the setup. To me, the setup is a psychological moment in time where there's a high probability of one thing happening over another. And so that's what I like. Anyway, so that's the real quick thing there. So what I want to do is I would like to, and Tom, really, I think the two things, and, A, you can talk about whatever you want. B, I think it's always interesting, your take on the market's always interesting, but then also you guys have a lot of things happening at Tasty, and I think it would be fun just to kind of talk about, from your perspective, like what's going on now, what are you guys looking at, all that kind of fun stuff. And so I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, John. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So I didn't want to interrupt you. You were on a roll. I've decided after listening to you, we can't afford you, but we're going to make you the chief marketing officer. We're going to make you our our number one intern for our chief marketing officer.
I love it. I'm there. I'm in.
Yeah, we need the John Carter telling the Tasty story. I love it. So thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and listening to us talk. I love talking markets with John. We, like he said, we go back probably into the kind of the early 2000s, and we've been talking markets ever since, and we've been talking business too. It's been interesting. I've been watching John's career. He's been watching my career, and we've been, working together. I mean, when Scott and I set out, we were floor traders for, almost 20 years on the floor of the CBOE. And in 1999, we set out to build Thinkorswim. We were like, we only really knew one thing, which was kind of the option marketplace. And we also knew what we wanted to see, and we didn't care what the other platforms had. And so we built this crazy platform called Thinkorswim, and we loved it. And, things happen. You just learn along the way, and you grow. And it was an amazing piece of technology. But as we built Tasty a little bit later in the process, things became apparent to us what we missed the first time around. The first time around, we just threw a lot of stuff at the wall. And the second time around, after working with people like John, I didn't know anything about charts. Next thing I know, I'm building, John Carter indicators, and I don't also know that much about the way retail customers traded. So I've spent the last 20 years learning. And in the process, John was right. We've built, Tasty is not a simple platform in the sense that it's an amazing piece of high frequency technology. It's not bloated. It's not slow. It's lightning fast. It's way faster than virtually any other platform in the world, and for retail investors. And it is the only platform that supports all products. So John, if I've got a few minutes here, do you mind if I put up my platform live?
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully pull this off right here. Click on this, hit this. This should be, can you see my platform?
Let me kill mine. Let's see. Let me grab, now I'm trying to find mine. Okay, there we go.
I should be sharing my screen, which has Tasty Crypto in the background.
Yeah, can you guys see it? Mine just acted a little goofy here, so I'm trying to find, I'm looking for I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not looking at the chat, so just let me know if people can see this. If people can see this, I can give the demo I want to.
All right. There. You know what? I need to close my Thinkorswim account because it's hogging up all my RAM.
Oh, okay.
You're all good. I killed your screen for you, John.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
So can you see my screen now?
Yep, you're all live.
Yes. Yeah. Good to go.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so John said something really interesting before to everybody who's on tonight, and he talked about a philosophy that we have at Tasty. And by the way, Scott and Jason and Chris are on tonight. So there's 3 people in the chat room, and there's like thousands of people on this chat. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, absolutely nothing is off limits. And those guys will answer, basically anything you want. Just fire away. So when we built Tastyworks, we had one objective. And John, you'll love this. It was really to facilitate opportunity. I looked at the retail space and I said, you know what? The best thing we can do for individual investors is not limit anybody based on what they want to trade and what strategy they want to use. I don't care how you make a decision, but what I want to do for the John Carters of the world and all of his, all of his subscribers and all of everybody that follows you, John, what I want to do is provide a platform that allows any person to trade any product that we're allowed to and any strategy, and not limit people based on like traditional suitability rules or traditional, strategic limitations or traditional product limitations. Tasty is the only firm, like when you look at TD, for example, they don't offer digital assets. When you look at Schwab, they don't offer digital assets. When you look at E-Trade, they don't offer digital assets. In some cases, they don't offer certain strategic, things to do in IRA accounts and things like that. When you look at Interactive Brokers, they don't offer digital assets. When you look at Fidelity, they don't offer futures or digital assets. When you look at Robinhood, they don't offer futures. And so we decided, hey, you know what? We're going to offer everything. And we're going to be the only firm, or maybe the only firm, that offers virtually everything. And what's so cool about that is, and tonight we're going to focus a lot on crypto, because crypto's really, it's really moving around tonight. It's kind of, John touched on it a little bit, but it is probably the wildest crypto night I've seen in a while. Over here, you can see, I'm going to bring up this middle chart is Bitcoin tonight. And you can see it right now from the cash close, which is not the futures close. It's a little bit different. But from the cash close, it's down $9,000, that's on a rolling 24 hours. So John, that's one of the biggest moves I've seen, on a rolling 24-hour basis. That's basically 20%. That's a pretty huge move. If you look at the futures, which are over here, this is the MBT, which are the Bitcoin, the micro futures. Now, John traded the large futures contract, but most retail investors don't trade the large futures contract, John, because it's too big a notional product for most retail accounts. So this one is 1/10 the size. It's the exact same product. It's just 1/10 the size. And it's $5,000 worth of notional instead of 250,000. That's the difference.
Nice. Yeah.
So
Okay.
for most retail investors, this is the product that they like. But now here's the interesting thing, and this is what separates Tasty from really anybody else. The option marketplace is closed tonight, listed options. The stock marketplace is closed tonight, but the futures marketplace is open. So just to give you some ideas of what we can do, this is just one of our interfaces. We have 6 different interfaces on this platform. And if you go to this drop-down menu here, and for example, this is we call our table interface. So if you were trading with spiders or something like that, you'd go straight to this interface, and then your option quotes would be in here. But John, the cool thing about the platform is, I know you know all this, is you go to the crypto interface, and we have 13 cryptos, 13 tokens now on the platform. They're all in this drop-down menu. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and then the list goes on. And we just launched, as of Monday, this one here, which is called Pax Gold, which is physical gold. Now, the neat thing about Cash Crypto is that it trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So weekends, holidays, doesn't matter. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is the really the pro of this. And the other nice thing is you can do any dollar amount you want. So John made, a trade for, $2 million before, but this is a trade. If you want to trade $1, you can do $1. If you want to do $100, you can do $100. And the great thing about Tasty Crypto, and this is what you guys are going to love, is we charge 1% to make a crypto trade up to $1,000, and then we cap it at $10. So if you trade a Bitcoin, a full Bitcoin here, which is $50,000, if you were at Coinbase or Robinhood, the commissions would be $500. On Tasty, it's $10. So we have the lowest commissions in the entire world right now on cryptocurrencies. We cap everything at $10. So a big trader like John trades a couple of Bitcoins, he pays $10 total. Another platform, you pay $1,500 or something like that if you trade 3 Bitcoin. It's crazy. So we cap the commissions to make everything fair. We've also done it from a single interface. So if you wanted to trade, like you said, a futures product and then a cash product, you can do that as well. Now, the downside, the cons of trading cash crypto is A, there's no margin. B, so you can't borrow any money because that's why it's called a cash market, and it's not regulated by the U.S. regulatory authorities, or the U.S. futures regulators. The second thing is that it doesn't have options. So there's no options and there's no margin. And those are 2 very limiting things. And the third thing is you can't short it. So there's no shorts, there's no margin, and there's no options. But if you want to tonight, for example, you're thinking, hey, Bitcoin's kind of cheap. Like, so here's Bitcoin. Let's just say I wanted to go out and say, hey, this is a pretty good sell-off. I'm going to buy just $500 worth. You just click it and filled $500. And let's say, you know what? I like Bitcoin there, but I'd rather buy Polkadot, which is like, kind of the next Ethereum, as people saying. So I'll buy $500 of Polkadot. And that's how simple and fast the platform is. Now, if you're nervous over here and you're like, you know what? Yeah, but I want to play the short side like John is. So I'm going to sell right now a micro Bitcoin future, which is $5,000 worth of Bitcoin. I just sold the micro future. So John, the cool thing is this, from a single interface, this is really the only platform that allows you to choose from 13 different cryptocurrencies, not have to worry about, moving money, digital wallets, passwords, or any of that kind of stuff. And it allows you to trade the futures, any one of the futures contracts, any one of the Bitcoin Cash contracts, and obviously during the day, any one of the Bitcoin stock or ETFs, or any of those options. So for example, if you want to trade Block or you want to trade Riot or something like that, and you wanted to offset it against, or just trade it up against cash markets or against the futures markets, you can do all of the above from a single platform, from a single interface. And that's really one of the neatest things about Tasty. It's just that, everything is supported from a single platform. And John, that's really what our goal was when Scott and I set out to build Tastyworks. The reason that we wanted to build another platform wasn't just because our non-compete was operating, that kind of stuff, was because there was things we were learning 10 years ago that just like things that I've watched your business I've watched you transition your business, and I've watched it transform from what it was 10 or 15 years ago. There's so much that you've learned, and there's so much that you've incorporated. When I first met you, you weren't trading stocks, you weren't trading options, and now everything's on the table. You just said it before. Everything's on the table. We should be, as customers, as self-directed strategic investors, we should be indifferent to product. And here, this one's interesting here because this is Pax Gold. This is the first platform to offer physical gold via secure tokens. And if you don't think that, hey, this is important to me, like if you're on this chat tonight, you're listening to this webinar, John and I are we're very passionate about people being articulate about finance, because to us, what we do is much more productive and much more practical and much more applicable if people understand different products and different strategies. So if we can sit here and talk about, the future of tokenized trading, the future of digitization, the future of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and all of that makes sense to you, as this business starts to grow over the next couple of years, the things that you're going to be able to do through secure tokens. I mean, John, you never, and I never thought a couple of years ago, if you wanted to trade gold, you would have to buy 100 ounces of gold, or you'd have to buy, 100 shares or 1,000 shares of GLD. Now, if I want to buy, for example, $500 of, let's say I want to buy $1,000 of physical gold right now, just click in $1,000 here, and let's just see. Oh, there it is. Okay. I just bought $1,000 of physical gold. That's just real $1,000 of spot gold. I mean, we're doing that from the same way that you're trading Bitcoin, from the same platform that you're trading, a micro future from. I mean, it's so cool what you can do today. It's really amazing, isn't it?
It is interesting just kind of watching, the other things too, is it really is about, what happens is, and I think when traders first get into the markets, maybe they did buy, a Delta 20 call on Tesla and it worked, but then they find that doesn't work all the time. And then it's really, then you start kind of learning about, how money kind of flows in and out of different assets. And, one of the things I really liked is when you guys first brought on, I think you had like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. And I always like to play around, like, okay, let's play around with this. And there was one weekend where it was like, wow, Ethereum broke out, and it was a Saturday morning, and I'm able to buy and had a great weekend. And I wouldn't have done that on Coinbase, or because I can't analyze the charts on Coinbase, right? I look at charts.
And you wouldn't have moved, and you didn't want to move the money over. You don't want to. Here's the problem with the Coinbases of the world: it's a one-trick pony, and in the world of John Carter, in the world of the few thousand people that are on the webinar tonight, I don't want to be stuck with a single product that you can't short or you can't do anything. Like, I mean, like it's wonderful to be able to go over here and for example, you know what? I'm going to sell actually. I'm going to sell a mini gold contract tonight just for the hell of it. So I just sold a mini gold future, and then I'm going to go back to the crypto page here, and you know what? And I mean, normally I wouldn't buy cash gold and sell the futures gold because I'm not arbing the two, but I'm just showing you kind of how cool it is to be able to, like, if I wanted to, I actually should have done this. I should have gone up to the top here and gone to /GC. I should have shown you this, and this is an option chain for gold futures. Now they don't trade a lot at night. They're kind of it's kind of pretty thin.
Yeah, they're quiet.
But
they're quiet and shy at night.
Yeah. So if you look at, this is the volume column here, and if you look at volume, there's basically nothing trading tonight. But if I wanted to just throw at 1810, I wanted to throw, let's say I wanted to sell one short put, and I'll put it in. Let's just put it in between the markets, see if anybody grabs it. I'll lower it a little bit. So maybe somebody will take it here. Okay, so I just sold one put in gold futures, okay? And so now I can go out and now I can put on a play if I wanted to. And I mean, I'm not gonna do the whole thing tonight, but if I wanted to just go out, for example, and look at Pax Gold, and instead of buying $1,000, I'm gonna buy $4,000 more. And this is a short premium play to take advantage of the reasonably high IV rank up here. And this is just a pure overnight, short premium play. So I'm going to buy some Pax Gold, and I just bought $4,000 more of gold. So I bought $5,000 total in gold and did it against a short put in gold. Okay. That's kind of like, it's just an interesting discussion. I mean, I'm short futures too. That's why. So I bought the short put is long. The actual gold is long, but I'm short futures on the other side. So it's a long short. But you couldn't do this on any other platform.
Oh, keep going.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Oh no, well, so a couple people were asking like, oh, you have options. There's options on futures, and what's nice about that is that, if you've traded futures before, and it's kind of like, okay, maybe those are scary. If you understand options on stocks, you'll understand options on futures. It's just, one option is just one futures contract, and what's great about that, especially if you think like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a big move in gold, well, great. Buy a out of the money call debit spread, 50 points wide. It's pretty cheap. And, it's one of those things, if it doesn't work, okay. And if it does work, it's a home run. And that's some of the, and you can, technically you can do that on GLD as well. But I've found that for bigger moves, I prefer the options on futures like that. And, you could do it in soybeans or corn and stuff like that too.
Absolutely. And just to give you an idea, what's so neat about one of these platforms that like Tasty, that's all inclusive of everything, is that you're not limited. I mean, and it allows you to kind of jump around to whatever's interesting to you. I mean, I understand that a lot of options on futures don't trade that much at night. It's kind of thin. Let's take a look at soybeans because you just mentioned them. But it's just, I mean, they're down 15 cents tonight. I finally have a downtick. But if I opened up the June options in here, you can see that kind of not much is trading at night in here. But if you wanted to trade soybeans tonight, I mean, the markets aren't that bad, and you can easily get filled. So, for example, if you're a little bit nervous about, soybeans haven't had a downtick, John, in about in what feels like
about a while.
I mean, you want to talk about a hyperbolic move. The problem is tonight, these markets are just crazy wide. They're almost untradeable. So I mean, that's one of the problems with futures markets, futures options markets at night, but during the day, they're totally liquid. But the neat thing about Tastyworks is we allow you to trade futures options in an IRA account, long or short. We don't care. So you can trade long or short in an IRA account, futures options and futures as well as long or short equity options. And nobody else allows that in all different account types. So we're indifferent to strategy. Here's an example. So this platform supports virtually any strategy that you can think of for futures and for listed options. We are completely indifferent to strategy. Everything on the platform is configurable. So if you wanted to, for example, let's just go stay in the world of soybeans for a second. And if you wanted to, sell an out of the money, if you want to sell an out of the money call in soybeans, you just click on the bid. If you wanted to turn it into a call vertical spread, you just click on the offer. If you want to adjust the spread and make it wider, you just drag it. And if you want to add, a short put spread to this and turn it into an iron condor, you just click over here. That's all you have to do. And then you can just drag and drop the strike into whatever you want. You can change the quantities to do whatever you want. And then you can go from a soybeans option to trading IBM or Tesla, whatever. Here, I'll give you an example. You can go from trading soybeans to trading Tesla, and it's the exact same layout. And then we can just, drop down here into a menu and go back to crypto again because it's nighttime and we can pick out whatever we want to do. See here, John, it's pretty interesting. They just rallied them up, but since we've been talking, they were down to about 47,500 and now jumped up almost $3,000 in Bitcoin in just a very short period of time. Did you see why they were killing Bitcoin tonight?
I didn't see the why, huh?
Oh, the why was because Elon Musk came out and said that he was no longer accepting Bitcoin to buy Tesla with because of the strain it put on the strain that the miners put on the environment. So it was strictly an environmental thing. And until they come up with a more efficient way and a cleaner way of mining for Bitcoin, he felt it was just, a poor use of energy.
I wonder what the real reason was.
Maybe
that was the real reason, but that sounds very PR focused.
Yeah, I mean, but again, what the purpose of the event tonight was to basically show you what you can do on the Tastyworks platform, whether it's Tasty Crypto, whatever, and obviously, all the John Carter stuff is built into multiple charting platforms that we have on this platform, but you can also trade from different charting platforms on here, or you can even trade on this software. You can trade from a curve mode. If I set up a trade, actually, let me go back to Tesla for a second. If I set up a trade in Tesla, for example, in June, and you wanted to see something like a short strangle, just a simple short strangle, and you want to see it in a curve mode, you can do that as well and see it inside of a distribution curve. And you can see green is where you make money, red is where you lose money, and that's the amount of premium that you pick up. And then the nice thing about this platform is all your Greeks pop into the same page. And if you filled any Tesla orders, they would pop in over here, right down this page here. And then any existing Tesla positions will be over here. I just don't currently have anything on in this account in Tesla. But if you went to something where for example, I do have positions on, like spiders, you would see that, I'll go to table mode, and you would see like a spider position will pop in over here in this account, short 300 call spreads in here, and then all the spider activity from today would pop in down here. And that's how simple the platform is. Everything's on one page, everything's always in front of you, and you trade spiders, which is an ETF, futures, and digital assets, all from the same platform, all from the same capital source. So someone like John, who goes out and trades everything, it doesn't matter. I mean, you just go from one product to the other. It doesn't make any difference. And John, I don't know what your feeling is about the future of the next 10 years, but I feel pretty strongly that over the course of the next couple of years, and I don't know how much you've read about what's going on around the rest of the world right now, but the other day, FTX, which is a non-regulated exchange, created lumber futures in less than 12 hours. And there's crypto options. There's crypto options being launched all over the world. There's non-regulated digital exchanges and tokenized trading taking place all over the world. It's only a matter of time, because we've already started launching it on Tasty. It's only a matter of time before these products are leveraged, have options, and come to the US. So retail investors that are listening to tonight's chat, you have such a jump on everybody else being able to incorporate all this stuff into your trading. And you know what? You can do it as small as you want. You can do it as little as, $10, $50, $100, whatever it is. You don't have to trade it big. You can just get comfortable. I think every person, and John, I think you'd be on board with this. I think every person should go out and buy, doesn't matter if it's $10 or $100 or $1,000 worth of a cryptocurrency, just to say, hey, you know what? I'm learning how to use these. I'm learning how strategically they fit into my portfolio. Do you know if you buy 1, 2, 3, or 4% of a cryptocurrency and add it to a long bias portfolio, the correlation is virtually zero. And so because of the high volatility and the alpha boost created by cryptocurrencies, there's virtually no drawdown to a equity portfolio if you keep your cryptocurrency of it under 4%. We've done some really interesting studies on that, and the upside alpha that you get from it is extraordinary. So just keep that in the back of your head and trade it really small and give it a try.
And I love that. So a couple of things that stand out, or one, and if you guys have not watched Tasty Trade, one of the things that they've done is they have these, very smart statisticians and research guys and gals, and they dive in and they come up with stuff like this, where it's like, I would never have, maybe you might think of it and say, oh yeah, it makes sense to, let's buy some crypto here, but they do the math behind it, so that's great. And I do think long term, Ethereum is like land. You just buy it, just buy some and forget about it and see where it is in 10 years. So one thing, Tom, and I know this is something that's been on the platform forever, but for those that are newer, I think this is one of the coolest features. So people that come in, they may not know about the Greeks, but one of the things you guys have on your platform is the probability of profit feature. And I was wondering if you maybe just take a few minutes and talk about that.
Sure. Let me tell you a quick little story while I have you on, because I told this today and I have to tell you because you're going to love this. And I don't think you know the story. So about 8 years ago, Tony and I were interviewing people on what we call bootstrapping in America, right? It's a little segment we do with young entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have this, so the producer we have brings on this kid, and his name is Vitalik Brookman. And he's 17 years old. He's in his mom's basement, and he's on a headset. We don't usually do it on long distance like that. It was always in the studio. But for him, we decided to do it because he was working on something really interesting. And he was the founder of Ethereum. And I couldn't even pronounce Ethereum. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's a crazy story. He had never done an interview before, and we were his first interview. And Tony and I had just bought our first Bitcoin for about, we paid our developers for like 1 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoins for, I think they were about $500 each. So we gave them $1,000, and we had 2 Bitcoins in the digital wallet. And so we just bought a cryptocurrency so we could do this interview with this kid, Vitalik Brookman. So he's in his mom's basement. I'll never forget, he was 17 years old, and he starts talking about Ethereum and Ethereum blockchain and what he was building. We didn't understand anything. And so we said to him, so how much is this cryptocurrency, this coin that you're building? He's like, well, right now it's about 20 cents. And I looked at Tony and I, and as soon as the break was, and we just said, oh, that sounds cheap. Like we didn't know anything. And I looked at Tony and I go, that would be the worst 20 cents anybody ever spent. Like to imagine, can you imagine buying this kid's coin for 20 cents? Like, how are you ever going to sell it? Well, right. I just read that he donated $1 billion. $1 billion. He donated $1 billion of Ethereum to India for the pandemic causes. And I'm telling you, we look back at that interview and we look at ourselves and we go, we have to be among the dumbest people that ever lived, because we didn't give this kid, we had it. We had a chance. We were his first interview. We could have, we could have done something. We could have bought something.
But,
we didn't
but to be fair, that's a hard sell. That's a hard, what are you talking about? In retrospect, yeah, it looks like, but maybe buy 5.
I didn't even understand it at the time. I really didn't understand it at all. I was like, Ethereum, how do you spell that? Anyway, I had to bring that up because it's just a crazy story. So let's say these are spiders, the most actively traded underlying. And let's say I went out and I said, hey, you know what? Vol popped up. This is the IB rank today, 47. This IB rank was in single digits the other day. So let's say I wanted to go out and just create something where I'm going to sell, just so it fits on the screen here, I'm going to sell a 40 delta. I'm going to sell a 40 delta call and a 40 delta put. That's kind of a pretty heavy, pretty rich strangle. $16 would be the amount. Actually, let me go a little bit wider because I want to make it over 50%. Let me see if I can get it up here. Close, but not exactly. I want it just to fit on the screen. But I'm selling a wide strangle here, collecting $14.39 if I was able to sell at the mid price. Because this IB rank, which is only on Tasty, I shouldn't say only on Tasty. Other firms have started to build it now and copy us, but this is something that we created years back. And this shows how this implied volatility number here measures over the last 52 weeks. So this is considered very high at 47 out of 100 is very high for implied volatility. That means that this expected move here of $22 for the next 37 days is a theoretically rich premium. So we come down to the bottom of the page, and again, one of the things that we've always done well, from building Thinkorswim 20 years ago, 22 years ago now, and to building Tasty 4 years ago, is that we've designed platforms to be aesthetically really beautiful. And what we've done on this platform was no bloat, speed, crazy stability. There's virtually no downtime, and all the Greeks and everything into a single page. So whether you want to trade Bitcoin, you want to trade futures, you want to trade options, here, this is what John was talking about. This is your POP. This is your probability of profit. Probability of making 1 penny at expiration. If you were to sell this, 49% right here. You don't have to look at another page or anything like that. The amount of extrinsic premium, well, I'll change the quantity here so you got one lot so it's easier to understand. So the POP is 49%. The extrinsic premium is $1,500 or $1,440. But this number is another proprietary number to us, which is P50. That's the probability of making 50% of this number, or $7.20, which is important to know because it's very rare that you let profits max out, but it's much more likely that you'll get a percent of the amount of money that you collect. The normal percentage that we target is, in the end, is about 25%. We'd like to make 50, but 25% keeping is really the target goal. So there's a 75% chance here that you're going to make $7.20. That's what we call, and that is that is run through, like, that's a classic machine learning run through just an incredible amount of, we simulate thousands and thousands of occurrences. And so POP 49%, probability of making 50% of that number is 75%. And there's your theta, that's your amount of premium that you take in per day. And there's your max profit, and your max loss in this case is infinite. And there's the buying power reduction on this trade, so you can figure out return on capital if you want to. But position over here, mini chart up here, all the activity you had in this particular underlying over here, and the entire marketplace over here, and that's all you need. And everything right in front of you. If you wanted to see a chart on spiders, it would automatically default to that. If you wanted to see tasty charts where all John stuff is, it's in here. And, and if you wanted to, for example, I made about 100 different trades today. If you wanted to follow every single trade I made, just click on Tom, and there's every trade I made. Crazy. And today wouldn't have been a bad day to follow me. Some days are a disaster. today would have been good. I can't tell you which are the good days to follow me and which are the bad days, but today would have been pretty good. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time, John, but I wanted to get to the point where you're talking about where you showed probability of profit. And again, everything on a single page. And because we're active tonight and we're active in the crypto space, we'll go back to the crypto marketplace and, we'll see what's going on here.
Yeah, I know it was funny. We were talking the other day going like, yeah, if there's something that might be, hopefully there's something interesting going on in the crypto market. And of course, this is probably the most volatile crypto market in the evening I've seen, all year.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, we haven't seen a move like this since crypto went from like 20 to 10. And then all of a sudden had this, when it went from the first time it hit 20,000, then went back down to 10. But after it jumped through 20, 25,000, we had a few days where it was up, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. But I don't think we've seen a 20% sell-off in a 24-hour range. Now, the only reason that these crypto markets here, where I chose down 7,000, and why the futures over here show down 4,500, John, that's because this number here is a rolling 24-hour number, which is how like Coinbase and places like that do it, and that's how everybody around the world does it. And this is from the CME, and this is how the futures exchanges do it. So it's not, they're the same price, but they look a little bit different on the last price. And that confuses people. That makes sense. So you just have to be aware of that. Yep.
That makes sense. Well, very cool. Well, let me grab, let's see. Boom. And yeah, so that was super cool. And so what's interesting too, and I know some of you guys are very familiar with Tom and everything that's going on there. And for those of you that aren't, I always really enjoy kind of introducing people to the platform, because for people that didn't know, so one of the things that happens to us a lot too is we'll get people that'll come on and it's like, okay, I see that you're doing a put credit spread, but I can't do spreads. What do you mean you can't do spreads? Well, Fidelity or Schwab, they won't let me do spreads. Why won't they let you do spreads? I don't know. And it's interesting, and even in a regular account, so they got, they didn't fill out the account right,
No, it's
or they got
crazy.
an IRA.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's insane.
We let
It's just
anybody.
it's insanity.
We let anybody trade anything that they want to. And you got to understand, for everybody that's listening today, we built the two platforms that we built over the last 20 years, Thinkorswim and Tasty. That's the lion's share of the option order flow in the world come through two pieces of technology we built. And Tasty's just, newer, faster, bigger, stronger type thing, less bloated, but that comes with better technology. I'm not saying that the other platform's not great. It's just, this is just newer technology, and we're really proud of both of them. But the difference is that we still control what goes into this platform. So there's way more stuff, in the world of crypto. Today, I look at crypto almost like it's like, if you don't have crypto, you're not a complete platform.
Yeah, you're missing out on kind of the wave of the future, basically. It's just like, like not everybody's going to keep trading IBM for the rest of their lives. Like there's other asset classes that are out there.
Yeah, and you have to be able to support. I mean, that right around the corner, I don't know when it's going to be, but like there was a CPI number today. There's going to be event-based trading coming out within the next 12 to 18 months, meaning that you're going to be able to trade like the CPI number using digital tokens. There's going to be, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trading of individual equities using secure tokens because we don't have to deal with the U.S. exchanges and all their crazy fees. And then why can't we, within the next year or so, say on Tastyworks, hey, you know what? If you want to trade a Chinese company, like let's say Ant goes public, and you want to trade that in China, why can't we trade that using secure tokens through this platform without having to pass through data fees or without having to pass through clearing fees and money conversion? Like that's all going to happen. And so you've got to be on a platform that's aggressive, that's willing to take that risk and willing to put that kind of product, right into the same format as everything else. So the customer can trade whatever they want.
Well, and that's the other thing I really appreciate about Tasty, and it's kind of a, they treat their clients like adults. It's yes, you can do spreads. Here, we'll show, we're showing you how to do it. And it's actually a higher probability if you're bullish to sell a put credit spread than to, buy that call. And it's fascinating to me that, a lot of brokers out there won't do that. It's just like, no, sorry, we don't think that's appropriate for you. It's like, really? So I just find that kind of stuff fascinating.
Well, we've changed the industry over the last 2 decades, and we're not done yet. So, I mean, we love what we do. So our next goal is to go global, and that's what our objective is next year, and or for the next year, I should say. The pandemic, didn't slow us down, but I really, want to integrate, global products and make everything digital, over time, so that a Tastyworks customer can basically trade whatever the hell's out there anywhere, as long as the market's efficient. We're not going to offer any products where you can drive a truck through the market so the customer gets ripped off. And it's important to note, our fees are up to 50 times lower than Coinbase and Robinhood. And so I think people lose sight of that when they're trading crypto. And that's really important.
Yeah, and that adds up. I mean, when I will do longer term holdings on Coinbase, and it's like I buy a Bitcoin, it's like $300. It's like, thank you, sir, may I have another.
Yeah, it's $10 on our platform.
Yeah, which is great. So you mentioned the charts a couple. So one question I see coming through a lot is, what about Canada? What about Canada? So I don't, I think the answer to that is.
I can give you an update.
Okay.
I can give you an update on Canada. So the update on Canada is, because I meet with our clearing firm, the update on Canada is Tasty will be approved in Canada very shortly. We're basically on the 1 yard line, but Canada doesn't have any independent clearing firms. So we have convinced Apex to go to Canada. That's our clearing firm. And they're going through the process right now of they have to get licensed in Canada. They're going through the process. They've assembled a team in Canada. They have started there's a CEO there. There's a whole team around them of consultants and lawyers and everything else. They're in the process of ramping up and going through the licensing process in Canada. We will be licensed before them. as soon as they're licensed and we have a place to clear, we will be live in Canada. So we're hoping that we're only months away. And that is the whole story. We'll be live very soon, but we won't be able to take customers because we can't clear. Canada's tough. We are approved and we are live in Australia. We have Tastyworks Australia if you have Australian customers, and we're growing quickly in Australia. And we're also going to be going, we did the IG deal so we can go to 17 more countries around the world next year. So Tasty will be going out and getting licenses in the UK so we can solicit. We'll be in Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan, and hopefully
awesome.
Indonesia as well. Yeah, so we'll be there within 12 months everywhere. No, we're already live there, but we're actually going to be able to go there and talk to people and over the next 12 months. So we'll be in 17 countries, and we'll be competing globally, with the few firms that compete globally. And again, part of my goal is to bring, not only customers from all around the world, but also to bring products so that U.S. customers, we're going to support U.S. markets. And so we want people in the U.S. to be able to trade anything they want.
I was really excited too about the IG deal because I know how much reach that gives you guys, and I think that's going to be completed here like in the next month or so, and you guys will be rocking and rolling with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's fantastic. So a couple of things I want to show you guys, and Tom, feel free to, if there's anything you want to talk about, feel free to dive in. We were talking a little bit about the charts and what I would call a standard setup. So this is my biggest trade of the year so far has been on Google. So the setup was, basically, so this is, we've got there's a Squeeze Pro, which is a premium tool, but then there's the free Squeeze, which is just the rate, which is fine too, by the way. And when this happens, okay, what happens here is that the Bollinger Bands are contracting to the point where they're inside of the Keltner channels that I like to watch. And typically what that means is that the stock is quiet, the implied volatility is falling, which is a good time to buy calls, and it's building up energy. And the idea then, what we're looking at are things like, I'm a huge fan of what's called stacked moving averages. And so we got the little utility label now. These are new. These just got added, I think, yesterday. And you can say like, okay, even though today, like Google is hammered, right? But the moving averages are still stacked positive. And we'll talk about these lines. So the biggest trade for me this year was, okay, here we're in a squeeze. And basically, I bought a bunch of call debit spreads and sold some put credit spreads and was really in the dark depths of fiery hell for 3.5 weeks waiting for this thing to go. And then finally, it did go to 3 ATR, and it just became, we were buying debit spreads for 10 and selling them for 60, that kind of a move. And it was pretty amazing. So that's the premise when I say looking for an edge. Now, what we can do is the other thing too, when I was talking about, if a market's at 3 ATR, you need to get out. So, things like, what's happening right now in the market, it's falling. It's kind of like, well, guess what? That's what happens when you're at 3 ATR. There's nowhere to go. So when I say 3 ATR, what does this mean? So this is a free tool that has been added on Tasty. And, 3 ATR, so the white line here is simply a 21 period moving average, exponential moving average. And then ATR is a concept called average true range. So these are just, Keltner channels that measure -1 ATR from the mean, -2 ATR from the mean, and -3 ATR from the mean. On the upside, +1 ATR, +2 ATR, and +3 ATR. What I have found is that, when you get a squeeze, and, my rule of thumb, and if you want to save yourself a lot of grief and aggravation, only enter trades at the mean, okay, directional trades. So we're coming back, we've got a squeeze, instead of chasing it right there. Okay, now you're going to use your probability of profit, and you're going to set up some call debit spreads and some put credit spreads, whatever you like there. But then when you get to +2 ATR, that's what I call the easy move. That's the sweet spot. And at that point, you should really start taking some chips off the table. When you get to 3 ATR, you're in no man's land. And at that point, it's not safe to be long. And yeah, you miss out on some of this stuff. That's fine. But from when you get extreme like that to plus 3 ATR, it'll oftentimes you're going to get that swing to minus 3 ATR, which is what's been happening. And if we look at the Qs as well, it's been more extreme. And so the question is like, okay, so how do you know when you're about to get run over? And same thing here. Look at this. We get to plus 3 ATR. This is not the time to start, when the Qs are at plus 3 ATR, this is not the time to load up on out-of-the-money calls on Apple, right? If you're only a long trader, yeah, okay, maybe just wait or sell some call credit spreads, right? But the probability, the odds that we're going to at least revert back to the mean at that point are incredibly high. And then if you close below the mean, what happens is you start heading down, more. So I think the Qs at this point are overdone. And so I do think that we're going to rally back to the mean here. But then the question is that do we then do a series of higher highs, lower highs and lower lows in a downtrend, or does it kick back into an uptrend? I mean, I personally think I don't know if we're there yet, but I think this month or next month, we're going to put in a high for the rest of the year. So, I could be dead wrong on that. But I do think that, it's time for a breather on a number of things. And then you can see here that the squeeze fired short. Typically when the squeeze, so here, this is the squeeze developing. The first green dot after the series of red or black dots indicates the squeeze is fired. And at that point, that's when you're getting that upward movement. And it typically lasts 8 to 10 bars, and then it runs out of steam. What I like about this, if you guys are familiar with the term expected move, right, and all options are priced based on the expected move, well, here's a little secret. What I have found is that about 70% of the time, stocks move within what's called the expected move range, and about 30% of the time, they will actually exceed the expected move in what I call a greater than expected move, okay? The squeeze is basically a situation where there is a much higher probability than normal of a greater than expected move, okay? Meaning that instead of merely moving the expected move that the options have already priced in, it could go 2 to 3 times that. So the reason I like the squeeze so much is that it gives you a high probability moment in time where you can have a greater than expected move. And so that makes it fun, especially if you're buying calls and stuff like that too. So that's some of the stuff that I like on there. And if you go on here onto the tools, you'll see here we've got the 10X bars, there's the Keltner channels, ribbons, grab candles, propulsions, squeeze pro. A lot of these are free. A handful of these are more premium type tools, and we'll talk about what those are. And we got, if you guys are familiar with our utility labels, that was something that has been kind of a think or swim only for a while, and we finally, I was super excited to learn that we now have the utility labels, all right? And you can see, I've got the moving averages stacked positive. What does that look like? Well, if we bring up Caterpillar, the moving averages are stacked positive. That simply means that the 8 is on top of the 21, which is on top of the 34, which is on top of the 55, et cetera, et cetera. And that basically means that it's safe to buy a pullback to the mean. So Caterpillar, yeah, the markets look like crap here, but I certainly would like to buy a pullback on Caterpillar. If we can chart Bitcoin, and if we look at Bitcoin here, the let's see, go back to the chart. I was looking earlier at like say a 4-hour chart on this, and I saw the squeeze setting up, and we're below the mean, and that's what got me excited about the short side. I didn't know that there was something happening with Elon Musk. So, again, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's corn, whether it is, Apple or Tesla, the nice thing is that the setup works on all of them. So from there, then what can happen is if we go and say like, okay, on Caterpillar, I want to do something on Caterpillar, and based on this, I want to buy the dip because Caterpillar has been very strong, and it looks like it's going to hold here. Awesome. Well, then I can come over here to the trade, and right now it's on crypto. So there's these different tabs up here. I like the tables. And I generally, if I'm going to buy calls, I have kind of 2 different strategies here. If I'm going to buy calls, I like to go out over 30 days. And then if I'm going to sell puts, I'm fine going 9 days. So what I might do on something like this is say, you know what, I'm going to go and go ahead and sell a put credit spread on Caterpillar, and I generally will go like at the money. it's like, okay, awesome. And I can see and I can play around and say, okay, the probability that we're going to get a 50% profit on this is 62%. Maybe if I drop it down a hair, then it increases to 73%. And so sometimes it's nice, if you're like, okay, I want to get that to 75%, you can play around with it until it gets to 75-ish%, and then you're good. So that's a really cool feature with that. And then on the, if I'm going to do a long call, or even a call vertical, I always like to give myself the gift of time. So, maybe I am just going to do long call option. It's just on something like that, I definitely am going deeper in the money, because I just look at that as, if you're going to do that, it's certainly a cheaper way to trade the stock itself. But the reality of it is a lot of times, especially in a market that's a little mixed, is that, if you do a call debit spread here, it gives you a little bit more room to maneuver. And on something like this, go slightly in the money. I'll look at this and say, okay, the expected move on this is $15. We know that the squeeze could be a little bit more than that, but at the very least, we could say, okay, we're at, where are we? 237 plus 15, that takes us to about, 255 or so. So yeah, maybe I buy the 230 and I sell the 260 because I don't think it's going to get past the 260. And then that way, that'll help me with that. And I can say, okay, well, what does that look like? Probability of profit is 63%. What if I bring this up a little bit? Okay, that drops it, so you can play around with this, and it's just, you can kind of, I call it just kind of, it's like putting a bun in the oven until you get the percentage that you want. And so I just find that's super helpful. So there's a lot of stuff I love about this platform. And as I've always told you guys, and I've told Tom, it's like, hey, the more, I'm certainly fine trading on it, but the more of the tools that I like that are on it, the more I can use it. And I'm excited about that. So a couple things what I wanted to share with you guys is that, and we've already talked a lot about a lot of charts, but for those of you that were interested in, and we've kind of talked about a lot of this, so we don't need to go through this, but a lot of you that are interested in the Tastyworks platform. So right now, Tastyworks, prior to tonight, it comes already ready to go with our trend indicator, propulsion trade. Hope and Lope is simply a break of the high of the low bar and a low of the high bar. It's for reversals, the grab candles, the waves, and the squeeze. And since then, we've actually now added, and I know this is a little bit of an eyesore, but we've also added all of the trend studies and all of the utility labels. So there's a ton of free stuff on here, and then a handful of more premium tools, if you're into more of the premium tools. So the premium tools are the 10X bars. I really like those. We'll talk more about that. The early in and out pro, it's kind of like, hey, is it a good time to get into the squeeze? The RAF, that's just a kind of a good signal, like say, okay, this thing's done, or it's time to buy it. Squeeze Pro, and then Squeeze Pro signals. So here's my whole premise of this. So here's Tesla, 30-minute chart, right? Now, of course, this was from last year. So how do we trade this? Well, you put on the squeeze, and basically, with something like this, you're waiting for those moments in time when there's a squeeze, and then you take your money and run. Here's a squeeze, take your money and run, take your money and run, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, if there's no squeeze, no trade. No ticket, no laundry, no squeeze, no trade. That's basically kind of how I look at it. So here's regular candlesticks, right? And candlesticks are okay. I've never really been a candlestick aficionado, if that's the right term. They just didn't do much for me. But there's like a hanging Chad, a shooting star. I mean, it's just like, okay, I don't, it's just not my area. But 10X bars make sense to me. And 10X bars, basically, if they're green, it's just telling you like, hey, the momentum here is strong. If it's yellow, the momentum is neutral, and if it's red, the momentum is negative. And then if there's dots here, it's just telling you that on that bar, volume was 50% higher than normal. And so the 10X bars give me a lot of information. If I'm long and it's green and there's dots, that means there's a lot of momentum, there's a lot of volume. Guess what? I'm going to hold on. But if it starts to turn yellow, that tells me that it's running out of steam and it's time to get out. And so it gives me a lot of information for managing a trade. And then the RAF Pro is a really good, because you hear, oscillators, you'll have, stochastics and RSI, and they're okay, but there's a lot of flaws. Overbought can stay overbought forever, and vice versa. But what I found with this is that when you get so what this does is it looks for the ending of exhaustion patterns, okay? So for example, we're coming down, and it's starting to reach exhaustion. And when it does that, it gives you a ready. Okay, the ready is not the buy signal. The ready is like, hey, this pattern has exhausted itself. And then when you get the arrow, there's confirmation and you can get in. Okay, and that's what I find that's really great. And on the same thing on the short side as well. And so that's something that's very helpful. And then the Squeeze Pro signals, what these do is give you an idea of like, a question I'll get is like, well, if there's a squeeze, how do you know to go long or short? Well, they're telling you, you know what, this is a buy. You know, this is a buy. On the other hand, this is a sell. You know, on this squeeze, you're not buying it, you're shorting it. All right. And so it gives you kind of a heads up as to the probability of which way that squeeze is going to fire. Is it going to fire long and price is going to expand to the upside, or is it going to fire short and price is going to expand to the downside? And again, on all this stuff, it's like, oh, it's going to go to the short side. Great. You bring up your platform, you play around with some scenarios until you get your probability of profit where you want it, and boom, you're ready to go. And that's what I mean is you match a chart setup that over time I have found works great. And you know, you could mess up here and say, oh, I'm going to buy a Delta 10 put, and you could lose money, right? But if you want to get consistency and you want to create an equity curve that goes from the lower left of your screen to the upper right, you combine a high probability setup with an options trade, okay, that has a high probability statistically of working out. So if you get a setup that has a 75% probability of success and you match that with an option strategy that statistically, regardless of the setup, has a 75% probability of success, all of a sudden, you know, I don't know what 75 plus 75 adds up to in terms of, you know, getting close to 100%, but you know, the ballpark numbers I've gotten is when you combine a 75% you know, chart setup with a 75% option setup, you know, it is like a 96 probability of some type of success in there. So anyway, it gets kind of exciting, and it teaches you to be patient instead of chasing the latest meme stock or the latest, you know, Wall Street bets stuff. You actually just, you ignore all that. You don't need the news. You just ignore all that and you see, you know, what's happening, what are the setups here. So and then last but not least, it's called the Early In and Out Pro. And what that does, it just says when the squeeze is about to fire, it gives you a warning. Like, hey, you may be watching this, it's about to go. Okay, you may be watching this, it's about to go, so you better get in. So those are some tools that, you know, over time that we'd like to do. And we've talked about probability of profits. And so the whole idea with this and the premise of this is, you know, we want chart setups with the defined edge. Good news. Tastyworks has our tools now, has the key tools that we use to define edge. We want option strategies with defined edge, okay? So even if you're not that familiar with options, now that you saw the pop tool, it's like, oh gosh, let me adjust this until I get the, you know, the PAP where I want it. But then you want a trading platform with a defined edge, something that's light, something that is cutting edge, something that's not going to crash, right, or take up a lot of resources, something where you can learn about new trading instruments that are coming out like crypto, right? You're not, you know, that's just, so the biggest question I get from people trading crypto is, how do I trade crypto? What's Coinbase? You know, and that's hard to do versus like, oh, it's already on my platform. Awesome. Let me do that. And then the costs, you know, when I'm doing a large trade, whether small trade, large trade, whatever, my commission costs have plummeted, and that's a real cost. And as Tom said, it's not just for options and for stocks, but also for crypto. You know, you're not paying $300 to buy one Bitcoin. So it's a quadruple threat. If you want to do this for a living, if you want to be serious about this, then you need to give yourself an edge, okay? And it's just like, great, we got the chart, we got the right chart set up, we can find the right option strategy to match the probability of profit we want for that setup. We've got a trading platform that's cutting edge and it's not going to crash on us and it's not going to impose some ridiculous rules like you can't do a spread or you can't do that, and keep costs low as possible. And if you're doing that, you have an edge over all the other traders out there that are not doing that. Imagine people competing against people on Robinhood. They have no chance. They have no chance if you are you know, because you're taking, you know, you're trading against them basically. So for commissions, I think this is up to date. If it's not, let me know. But you know, what happens with the way Tasty does it is like there's no closing commissions, so which is great. If you look at something like 20 iron condors, which is 4 legs, and it can get up to 80 contracts, it can add up pretty quickly. And you can see here like to open and to close. And you can go on their website and check it out, but their prices are the lowest in the industry, which is great. If you're comparing them to other brokers, it's like, okay, I'm going to do 100 iron condors. Okay, well, with Tastyworks, that's going to cost you $120. Everywhere else, it's 500. That's just, again, it's a huge, huge, huge savings. So the whole goal of trading, what I've learned over time, is that the whole goal of trading is that on January 1st, you're here, and then, at the end of the year, you're here, and that's it. It's not trying to be right. It's not trying to figure out, what's happening here. And what this means is managing your edge. It's managing your probability. It's not getting too emotionally invested in a trade. If it's, guess what? Not every trade is going to work. Cut it loose. Move on. One of the things Tom does, he's like, look, trade small, trade often, and it's like swinging the club. If you're a golfer, I used to be a golfer, and then I had kids. I played baseball in high school. It's like taking batting practice, and you want to get used to placing trades and managing trades and doing it. And you can sit there and play around with smaller size and smaller trades until something really comes together, and try a little bit bigger. And I think that's a huge, huge piece of it. So what I wanted to share with you guys is that if you have never heard of Tastyworks, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to check them out. And we have a deal that I think you will like. So you can, first of all, of course, a lot of our indicators are now free on the Tastyworks platform. So that's great. And if you do or are willing and able to fund a Tastyworks account today with $2,000, we will give you a $500 coupon for our tools. And these are for, say, premium tools, if you wanted to add those to the platform, or you could use it, for anything in our store. This coupon is redeemable exclusively inside the Simpler store for tools and indicators. Now, I do want to say, and I apologize for this, this is at the time only valid for U.S. residents. So unfortunately, if you're in Singapore, it won't work there, and it's regulations, and we do our best, to try to hey, this should be applicable to everyone, but that's just how it is right now, and it's for new accounts that way. Okay, so if you don't have a Tastyworks account, you can go to this link right here, and we'll stick around here and answer questions. I just want to make sure you guys know, simplertrading.com/TW, okay, and I'll put this in here, www.simplertrading.com/TW, and I'll put that right there. Hopefully I spelled that right, and that's where you're going to start. So if you want to get our $500 coupon, it is critical that you actually go through this link, because that's how it's tracked. So if you've already gotten excited and you're already opening up an account, that's fine. The main goal is I want you to know about Tastyworks. If you would like to take advantage of the $500 coupon, you need to go through here and to do all that. So let me make sure I've got okay. So then, and this'll all be, it'll share the steps with you. So then once you do it, then you just need to submit okay, hey, I've funded it. And then you just go to simplertrading.com/rebate. And here you just want to make sure that you use the email address associated with your Tastyworks account. And again, that'll be explained as you go, but just so you understand the process. And then once you submit proof of your funded Tastyworks account to the link above, Tastyworks will authenticate the purchase, and in 7 to 10 business days, you'll receive a $500 coupon via email. And if you already have a Tasty account, but you didn't use our code, just shoot us an email, support@simplerdating.com. That's going to be our next site. Support@simplertrading.com, and then they'll help you guide you through getting a credit on that. Okay? And then if you already have signed up for the link, you can actually go to simplertrading.com/rebate and go through the whole process. So I think that's everything. Yeah. So if you are interested in these tools, what you can do is there is a bundle of, these are the premium tools that I really like, and there is a bundle for those, and you can go to simplertrading.com/tasty. I think that's, let me double check on that. Simpler, I'm throwing a lot of links at you guys, which I know can be, at that point can get a little brain dead. And Simpler Trading, yeah, okay. So for tools, for premium tools on Tasty, simplertrading.com/tasty. And again, the idea with these tools is just they create edge. And all right, we've talked about these. I want to spend one nice thing is that, we talked about this with folks that have smaller accounts, is that we do have a PayPal credit option, which means that when you go to checkout, choose PayPal credit, and it's no payment, no interest for 6 months. So that just gives you a little bit more time to work that out, which I think is great. And okay, cool. So that's that. So I just want to make sure you guys know that. Let me go back up here to the main link. So you guys, the main thing here is I want you guys, if you've never heard of Tastyworks, it will make a difference in your trading. So that's just, that's just really the story. And there we go. simplertrading.com/TW. And then, from here, I mean, we're happy to answer some questions. I know at some point everybody wants to, go to bed and stuff like that. I want to see what's going on here. So I'm basically long gold, long silver, and short Bitcoin. And I don't know. I was a little surprised gold kind of got a little whack today, but I'm looking for, I think gold's going to 1900. So, I've got some gold futures. I've got some gold debit spreads. Let me see. So I'm long the 1850 calls, and then I'm short the 1950 calls. So that's my call debit spread on the gold futures. So, if this thing can explode higher, that'll work out pretty good. And then I've also got, and I need to learn how to turn off those alerts. I need to, I've also got some, the 2750 30 call debit spread on the silver futures. And let's see. And then, yeah, so those are the main things I got right now. And then looking at, let me see, so besides Bitcoin, which is going crazy tonight, it seems like everything else is a little, well, the grains are coming off. They're finally having a downtick. So if we go over here to the charts, I'm curious to see. So this is the daily chart of silver, right? So we got a squeeze, right? We're coming down to the mean. So yeah, I'm looking for it to explode higher. It doesn't mean that it will, of course. I always like to joke that when you're trading, you want to be really careful what you say out loud, because that just gives the trading gods an excuse to laugh. But I like gold here. We got up to +2 ATR. We're easing back to the mean. We've got a squeeze. And so I think that gold has some potential. And then if we look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin settling in here in the futures, we did get down to, about 47,000, and now we're settling in around 50,000. But if you look at this from a squeeze perspective, we do have a squeeze setting up. The momentum's below zero. We got a sell signal here. And yeah, I know there was some news, and maybe the news that Elon Musk said that it's going to wash over, but I look at this as, I look at this as more downside. And what I can do is come over here and just look at a larger time frame and just say, like, okay, just from simple support and resistance, what makes sense? And I can see that there's a lot of support here at 30,000. Is it possible that Bitcoin could come to 30,000? Absolutely. It doesn't mean that it will. Right now, it's at support at about 46, 47,000. That's where it held. But, if it could come down to 30,000, that would be a great place to take off my shorts and turn around and go long. So the main point of all this is that, you guys know I love to trade options on equities, but what's great about on Tasty is we're talking about Bitcoin. And, I can also come over here and just say, like, well, is everything going down here, or is there, do I want to buy some DOT, or do I want to buy some Ethereum? I love Ethereum, by the way. I think Ethereum, I wish I would have bought it for 20 cents, but I think Ethereum is going to 10,000. I think this is something that it's the future. It's the wave of the future. You buy it like land and you just hold it. And so, So anyway, that's what I got, and happy to stick around and answer questions. Tom, if there's anything else you'd like to talk about, feel free.
No, I mean, I think people are going to be, I don't want them to get overloaded, but no, this is awesome. And I really enjoyed listening to the discussion. I mean, our positions are pretty similar. I'm a little long precious metals here, a little short crypto, I guess, and on balance. And in the market, I'm short a lot of premium with a little bit of short delta. So our positions are very similar.
It's not going to be a dull I think the rest of the year is going to be really volatile. I think what we've seen of the nice, the Fed's going to save the day and the market's going to rally. I think that's all kind of baked in now. And of course, I always, when I say stuff like that, I'm like, hey, I could be dead wrong, guys, but I do think we're going to see some more volatility where you actually need to have skill as a trader to make money. And but I say skill, it's really more what I mean is edge. And it's just that comes from having, the right tools, the right platform, get some setups. And then it doesn't have to be that painful if you kind of, then it's more of just kind of like, you're just flowing with it. You're not married to the idea that Tesla has to go up forever. It's just like anything can happen. So, what's happening in crypto, what's happening in gold, what's happening in Google. And, it just becomes more of a, it's almost, very much like, I like to body surf in the ocean, and it's kind of like that. You're trying to, what's the right wave here that's going to take me to shore, and that A is not going to be too powerful and kill me, and B is going to be too weak and not going to do anything. And so, that's what I kind of look at trading like.
Well, unlike years past and decades past where the rate of change was fairly slow in what happens in the world, the rate of change today is amazing. And, you saw it last year during the pandemic, down 35%, then right back up 35%. The rate of change in the world, the gamma, what we call gamma, which measures the rate of change, it's a whole different world today. And so we could have been dead last month, and you're right. We could be busy for the next 3 months, and then all of a sudden it just falls off a cliff and dies again, and then busy for the next 3 months. I mean, the rate of change now is so unpredictable that high volatility, if it's here to stay, it's going to be good for every trader.
Yeah, fully agreed. And I think that's the one thing for the traders that if you've been doing this for a little while, or you're starting to learn about things like, charts and probability of profit, the volatility is going to kill all the new traders, that just haven't learned that. And, the money's got to go somewhere, so it might as well go into your account. Hopefully, the folks that are, they're newer, and it's just like, wow, I buy the dip and it works. I hope that they find us or they find Tasty and they can actually learn a little bit more about how the markets work. But in the meantime, you guys are kind of part of the group of, we know, the stuff that's happening in the markets is normal and it's tradable, and it's not, some big thing where it's, diamond hands. I think the worst thing in the world is convincing people that bought GameStop at $400 that they should have diamond hands and never sell. I mean, that's just the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. So, just this is something where, as retail traders, the biggest edge we have over funds is liquidity. As a retail trader, we're not trying to trade $1 billion worth of something. We can get in and out of stuff, and it gives us a lot of possibilities, which is great.
Completely agree. Never lose sight of that liquidity line, because that's the single most important thing.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I think we'll probably a good time to sign off. We've all been hanging out here for an hour and a half. So I know Tom usually gets up at 2:30 in the morning. So probably about time to go to bed. But yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Tom, for joining us. Thanks, Scott and everybody that was answering questions, and everybody on here. And let's see what tomorrow brings for Thursday. And you guys have a great night.
John, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.